Hey everybody, it's Kurt Snow from Kurt Snow Fishing. I wanted to spend a few minutes putting a video together. This is something I've been thinking about doing for probably a couple of years now. Haven't really taken the time, and it's been a while since I've put out a video on lure making, so that's long overdue also. So today I want to put a video together to teach how to get more vibration out of your spinnerbaits. And these tips today will help you catch a lot more fish under certain conditions like cold, muddy water, after dark, and just in like stained water, things like that, where visibility is low. So there are two things to keep in mind when it comes to creating more vibration with your spinnerbaits. The first one, it always comes to everyone's mind, is the blade with regard to the size and the style. So I want to start off with the blade that everybody thinks of when they think about more vibration. And some people may not know this yet, but it's the good old-fashioned Colorado blade. All right, Colorado blades give more vibration per turn or per revolution than any other style blade. It's because of the shape, because the blade is broad. Let me turn this around here. Because it's broad this way, it moves more water. Every time that blade spins around, it pushes more water than, say, for example, a willow leaf blade. Indiana blades fall somewhere in the middle, so if you're looking for a blade that gives you kind of a good compromise between the two, an Indiana blade would be okay to use. But if you're looking for maximum vibration, maximum thump, then the Colorado blade is by far your best choice. Now, before I get into sizes and specific Colorado blades, let me talk about two things: the finish and the texture of the blade. So the finish of the blade, as far as the color, you can see this one is, this is actually brass. This one has not been used in the water, so it's still fairly shiny. Brass blades, if they're not lacquer coated, will have a tendency to get dull over time. So if you're looking for something that'll maintain flash, brass blades aren't what you want. If they're lacquer coated, they will tend to stay shiny for quite a while, but if the lacquer starts getting chipped up from hitting rocks, catching fish, etc., that finish will start to dull after a while. Now, there is one situation where that's actually not necessarily preferable, but okay, and that would be if you're using these blades to fish after dark. When I first started fishing after dark a lot, I purposely made my spinnerbaits for night fishing with hammered brass blades. And I did that for a reason. Number one is because knowing that after dark flash doesn't matter, I wasn't concerned with having a blade that would give me a lot of flash. I wanted something that would give me a lot of vibration. So I purposely built my spinnerbaits with big, hammered Colorado brass blades. And after using them for a week or two or whatever, the blade would be, it wouldn't be shiny like this. It would be very dull. In fact, it would turn almost brown, which was okay with me. I didn't care about that. That's actually, that's acceptable after dark. So finish is one of the things that I wanted to talk about, but also the texture of the blade. Now, when I say texture, what I mean is hammered versus smooth. All right. So now I don't have scientific evidence to back this up, but my opinion, based on a little bit of physics and so on and so forth, is that this blade here is going to create slightly more vibration than this blade of the same size. Now, why is that? That's because this blade is textured, and these little dimples in the blade are going to create just a little bit more vibration because they're going to catch the water better because it's a somewhat rough surface. So again, that's my opinion, and I'm not a physicist, I'm not any kind of a scientist or anything, but based on my understanding of how things move through the water and the fact that this is rough, this will create slightly more vibration. Now, the other thing that I will say is if you're fishing on a moonlit night or something and you're looking to get a little bit of flash out of a blade, you know, you could use a hammered blade to kind of catch. You can see if I turn it and move it in the light, it's reflecting the light. So you could use a hammered blade to try to catch a little bit of that moonlight and give yourself a little vibration, a little flash. You know, it's a good combination. So with that said, we have the two different surfaces. We have the smooth surface and we have the hammered surface. And again, I prefer the hammered surface after dark, but I'm not saying that it's a necessity. So as we continue, you'll understand why. Couple of other things. When it comes to blades, especially the Colorado blade, the bigger the blade you run, the more vibration you'll get. And that's just kind of a given. That's something that most people realize anyway. But you have to understand that when you start upsizing your blades and you start getting into those big size 7 and size 8 blades, that you're also compromising what you can get out of that spinnerbait for depth. Now, you obviously, if you're looking for a spinnerbait that's going to give you maximum vibration, you're going to want to jump up to a blade like this, which is a size 8. So if you look at this blade here next to it, I'm going to bring them up a little closer so you can see the difference. So I'm holding them equally distant from the camera. This is a 7, this is an 8. So if I put the two together and line them up, you can see I've got extra blade hanging out of there from the, there you go, on the hammered blade. So the bigger the blade, the more the vibration. But the problem with upsizing too much is if you plan on fishing water that's any more than say 3 to 4 feet deep, and you're fishing with a big number 8 blade, you're going to have to upsize your spinnerbait, the weight of your spinnerbait. So instead of, for example, fishing a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait with that size 8 blade, you're going to have to upsize to probably like a 3/4 ounce. And that's okay, but you have to take that into consideration when you're building your spinnerbaits so that you realize ahead of time and you plan ahead of time for those adjustments. So let's talk about specific blades and how they impact the vibration that they give off and why. So this blade here, this hammered number 8, and this non-hammered number 7, all right? These are standard Colorado blades. They're not premium quality. They're not the best quality. They're not terrible either. But I said that to say this. When you use the blades that are lesser quality, and you know, I can't really demonstrate this without a micrometer, but the thickness of the blade isn't going to be as heavy as a higher quality blade that's designed specifically for more thump. Now, when we talk about thump, there are a couple things that come into play. And I'm going to show you some new blades that Lure Parts Online came out with last fall. In fact, I helped them test these blades when they were getting ready to release them, because they know I do a lot of fishing after dark and fish a lot of spinnerbaits. And anybody that knows me knows that I love spinnerbaits, and spinnerbaits can catch some absolutely huge fish. Even here in New England where I live, you know, I've caught bass on spinnerbaits well up into the 7 1/4, almost 7 1/2 pound range. So I want to show you a new blade that Lure Parts Online came out with back in October, November of last year. It's called a T blade, and the T obviously is for thump. Now this blade, it's a Colorado blade, and it's a high-end blade. It's very high quality finish. It's a heavier blade. Again, you're not going to be able to see it without me having a micrometer to measure it with, but the thickness of this blade is more than the thickness of this blade. And now this is a size 7. This is the T blade. This is a size 6. This T blade probably weighs almost double what this one weighs. And again, I haven't weighed them, but just in handling it and holding on to it, putting it in my hand, if it's not double, it's a good 50% heavier than a standard Colorado blade. And it also has a little bit deeper cup around this edge, which will cause that blade to catch and move more water. It will also cause that blade to run just slightly differently in the water. So I want to share another blade with you that I've been using for the last 6 or 7, maybe 8 years, that I happened to get just by an off chance encounter that I had. I used to own a specific website that I won't name because it's irrelevant at this point, but when I owned that website, I had someone from Stanley Lures contact me. They were clearing out some spinnerbait blades that they had, and the Stanley wedge was a very good blade in its day. It still is. And basically, this is a Stanley wedge. This is like a size 8. This is a monster blade. They call it the wedge because it's thicker back here than it is up here. And that would cause the tail end of this blade to really kick and give a lot of vibration under the water. So they contacted me. I think they had like 100 and some odd blades like this with the swivels already on them. They gave me a price. And I thought the price was great. So I bought the whole bag. And I think I'm down to my last half a dozen or so of those blades. But this is, like I said, it's a monster blade. It's a size 8. And this thing thumps unbelievably. It moves massive amounts of water every time that blade turns around. So I've been using those blades on my spinnerbaits for the last 6, 7, 8 years after dark. So when I began testing the T-blade for Lure Parts Online, which by the way is available only up to a size 6. There are no 7s, there are no 8s, because there's very little demand, and these blades are expensive to make just by nature because of the material and the finish. So when I started fishing with the T-blades, testing them, I was comparing them to this. So you might think that's an unfair comparison, but this was the baseline that I used for looking at how much vibration the T-blades would generate. So with that said, I will say that the T-blade, there I go, making noises again. The T-blade is extremely, it's built very well, and the amount of thump that it gives off isn't as much as this. But this is a deeper thump, if that makes sense. This is a sharper thump. Because this blade is smaller, it can't move as much water, but because it has the thicker edge around here, similar to a deep cup Colorado, but not quite as deep, it's a more crisp thump. So because of the fact that I may want to take a spinnerbait, say a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait at night, and fish it in, say, 6, 7, maybe 8 feet of water, I would be more apt to use this blade instead of this blade. This would be the blade that I would use if I was fishing in 1 to maybe 5, 6 feet max for depth. At 6 feet, I'm going to have to let this flutter down and then retrieve it extremely slowly to keep it down anywhere near the bottom. With the T-blade, if I want a lot of thump without having to worry about the bait constantly lifting up higher and higher as I retrieve it, then I'm going to go with this blade. For a 1/2 ounce bait, I'm going to use a size 6. Now if I want to run a 1/2 ounce bait deeper, then I would drop to a size 5. So that covers a lot of the stuff with the blades, and this is actually a T-blade in chartreuse. So if you're looking for something in muddy, cold water that will give vibration and color, there you go right there. Chartreuse T-blade, and I think that's a size 6. Anyway, the T-blade is available up to a size 6, not above that, so keep that in mind. Again, if you're going to use the bigger, least or less expensive blades, this is a size 8, go with the hammered. If you're going to run a little bit deeper than 1 to 4 feet of water, drop back to a size 7. If you want to be able to retrieve your spinnerbait faster and still get good thump, then drop down to like a size 5 T-blade. Now, one other factor that a lot of people don't think of, and I'm going to wrap this up here real quickly if I can because I don't want it to be too long, but one thing that people tend to ignore, they get hung up on the blades that they're using. But let me tell you about some of the things that I've learned over the years. And again, I fish a ton of spinnerbaits. I've been doing it for 30 plus years, probably 35 years, making my own baits. So I've learned a thing or two about vibration when it comes to the type of head and wire that you use. Heavy wire will kill vibration. Light wire will give you more vibration. Now, the trade-off is that if you use wire that's too light, you're going to make a spinnerbait that's only going to last you about 3 or 4 fish, and it's going to fall apart. It will break. So I found a couple of spinnerbait heads at Lure Parts Online that I really like. This is the Minn-O-Spin. All right, this is a half ounce, has a 35 thousandths wire. You can see that it's quite flexible. All right, this is a fantastic spinnerbait head if you're looking for a spinnerbait that will give you a lot of vibration without having to use giant blades on it. So if you were to pair this up with a size 6 T-blade, this thing will give you incredible thump. All right, so keep that in mind. I'll put the part number for these things up on the screen once I get done recording. Again, that's a Minn-O-Spin head. So I've used a lot of those, but a few years ago, I discovered a different head that Lure Parts Online was making, and you can only get these from Lure Parts Online. They're made exclusively for them. This is called their signature spin head. This is by far the best spinnerbait head that you can buy, period. All right, everything about this head, the details are incredible. Pull it back so it'll focus. The details here on these heads are just fantastic. It has the keeper for the soft plastics. It has plastic eyes, so 3D eyes. It has the little gills in there, etc. But the thing I like about these, it also has a massively stout hook. I don't remember if it's Mustad. I think it's Mustad hooks. It's on their website anyway, and I'll put the part number up. But what I really like about these is the wire that they use. This wire is like no other wire that I've ever seen on any spinnerbait that I've ever bought, the pre-poured heads for. This is not your ordinary stainless steel wire. And let me show you, I don't know if the camera will pick up on it or not, but if you see the lower wire is shiny, this one is not. This is a different type of wire. They call it super stainless or something like that. But let me tell you something, this wire here gives you probably 20% more vibration than this wire. And again, I don't have scientific measurements to back that up, but based on my experiences, this wire will vibrate much, much more than any other wire that I've used. So this right here is a half ounce head. This comes with, let me see, I wrote it down, it's a 35 thousandths wire. So I wouldn't recommend using 32 thousandths for a half ounce spinnerbait or even a 3/8. I would say use 35 thousandths for those two sizes. If you're making a 1/4 ounce bait, 32 thousandths wire would be fine if you're pouring your own. But these heads are by far the best spinnerbait heads I've ever bought. They vibrate like crazy. They give you a feel for the spinnerbait that you won't get with any other spinnerbait wire. So that kind of wraps it up. Again, if you take this head and you pair it up with this T-blade, this being a 1/2 ounce head and a size 6 T-blade, you're going to have a bait that's going to thump extremely well. It won't be that deep thump that you'd get with the size 8 blade or even the size 7 blade if you were using a heavier 7. But if you pair this head, this signature spin head, with the T-blade, you're going to have a spinnerbait that will vibrate like nothing you've ever felt before. So, and I promise that. This is not a promotion for Lure Parts Online. This is my own opinion based on my experience. You know, I fish hundreds of times per year, much of that after dark in the summertime, where I'm looking for big bass, using spinnerbaits and a handful of other things. And those wires, the signature spin heads, are by far the best that I've used. So again, remember what I've said about blade sizes, how they affect the depth that you're going to fish. And remember that when you're using a giant blade like a number 8, you're going to have to retrieve your bait a lot more slowly to keep your spinnerbait from rolling over. If you want to prevent roll, you can upsize to a 3/4 ounce head, but it's going to require a little bit faster retrieve to keep your bait off the bottom, out of the weeds, out of the mud. So I think that covers everything. One last thing I just thought of. This T-blade is also available in what they call backhammered. So the front surface would be smooth, but the back side would be hammered, like this here. So you'd have smooth on the front and hammered on the back. And those are something that I'm going to be trying very soon. So I hope this maybe helps you with building your own spinnerbaits if you're interested in making baits that will give you more vibration, whether it's daytime or nighttime. If you have any questions at all about any of this, feel free to comment under the video. If you'd subscribe, like the video, share it with others, that'd be great. And that's all I have for now. So you guys take care and fish on. Bye-bye.